The fork slipped from my hand and clattered against the plate, loud enough to make the couple at the next table glance over. I barely noticed. My eyes were locked on the man sitting across from me, wearing a faded denim jacket with a tear near the shoulder and scuffed boots that had seen better days. "Are you okay?" he asked, concern flickering across his face. I wasn't okay. I was horrified. This couldn't be him. This couldn't be the man my best friend had hyped up for 3 weeks straight. "I'm fine," I lied, forcing a smile that felt like it might crack my face in half. "Just surprised." Surprise was putting it mildly. I'd expected someone polished, someone who had his life together. Instead, I got a guy who looked like he'd just rolled out of a thrift store bargain bin. His hair was messy, not in that intentional style way, but like he'd forgotten what a comb was. And those clothes? God, those clothes screamed broke artist or unemployed musician. My phone buzzed in my purse. Probably Jessica checking in to see how the date was going. I ignored it. How was I supposed to tell her that her perfect match for me looked like he couldn't afford a decent meal, let alone take a woman on a proper date? "So," he said, leaning back in his chair with an easiness that made me irrationally annoyed, "Jessica tells me you work in marketing?" "Corporate marketing," I corrected, emphasizing the word corporate like it might remind him and me that I had standards. "I manage brand strategy for a firm downtown. Big clients, high stakes, long hours." I waited for the usual response. Most guys either got intimidated or tried to one-up me with their own career accomplishments. But he just nodded, that infuriatingly calm smile still on his face. "That sounds intense," he said. "Rewarding, though, I bet." "It pays well," I said, sharper than I intended. I wanted him to know where I stood, what I expected, that I wasn't the kind of woman who settled for less. He didn't flinch. Instead, he picked up his water glass, not wine, I noticed, because apparently we were keeping this cheap, and took a slow sip. "Money's important," he said quietly, "but it's not everything." I almost laughed. Easy for him to say when he clearly didn't have any. "Hi, viewers. Kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story." The waiter appeared, saving me from having to respond. "Are we ready to order?" I glanced at the menu, deliberately choosing one of the pricier options. Seared scallops with truffle risotto. $48. I wanted to see him squirm, wanted to watch him fumble with the bill later. Maybe make some excuse about splitting it. "I'll have the scallops," I said, handing back the menu. He ordered the pasta, the cheapest thing on the menu, $12. Of course he did. As the waiter walked away, I found myself studying him more closely, trying to figure out what Jessica had seen in him. Sure, he was attractive in a rough, unpolished way. Strong jawline, dark eyes that seemed to notice everything, hands that looked like they'd done real work, not just push papers around a desk. But attractive didn't pay bills. Attractive didn't build a future. "So what do you do?" I asked, even though I wasn't sure I wanted to know. "For work, I mean." He hesitated, just for a second. "I'm between things right now," he said, figuring out my next move. Between things. That was code for unemployed. I felt my stomach sink even further. This was worse than I thought. Jessica had set me up with a guy who didn't even have a job. That must be challenging, I said, trying to keep the judgment out of my voice and failing miserably. "It has its moments," he admitted, "but it's also given me time to think about what really matters, what I want my life to look like." I bit the inside of my cheek to keep from saying something cruel. What I want my life to look like. That sounded like something people said when they were avoiding responsibility, when they were too lazy or too scared to actually build something real. My phone buzzed again. This time I pulled it out, grateful for the distraction. "Jessica, how's it going? Is he amazing or what?" I typed back quickly under the table. "We need to talk about your definition of amazing." "Sorry," I said, setting the phone down. "Work thing. At 8 o'clock at night. Corporate marketing." I repeated, "It never stops." He nodded like he understood, but I doubted he did. How could he? People like him probably didn't know what it meant to be indispensable, to have clients who needed you at all hours. to build something that mattered. Our food arrived, and I focused on my scallops, perfectly seared and worth every penny. Across from me, he ate his pasta slowly, like he was actually enjoying it, like he wasn't embarrassed to be eating the cheapest thing on the menu, while his date had ordered something 4 times the price. "So," he said between bites, "what made you agree to this blind date?" I almost choked on a scallop. What kind of question was that? "Jessica's persistent," I said. "She wouldn't shut up about you. And now that you're here," he was looking at me with those dark eyes, like he could see right through the designer dress and the expensive perfume to whatever I was really thinking. "Now that I'm here," I said carefully. "I'm wondering what she was thinking." I expected him to look hurt, maybe offended. Instead, he laughed. Actually laughed, like I'd said something funny instead of insulting. "Fair enough," he said. "I'm probably not what you expected." That's an understatement. What were you expecting? The question hung in the air between us. What had I been expecting? Someone successful. Someone who wore nice clothes and drove a nice car and could take me to nice restaurants without flinching at the prices. Someone who fit into my life, into the future I'd been carefully building for myself. Someone different, I said finally. "Someone richer," he said, and there was no judgment in his voice, just simple observation. I felt my cheeks flush. Is that so wrong? To want someone who has their life together? "Not wrong," he said, "just limiting." Limiting? Who did this guy think he was? Lecturing me about my standards. "I don't think it's limiting to know what I want," I said coldly. "I've worked hard to get where I am. I don't plan to settle for less than I deserve." "And what do you deserve?" The question caught me off guard. It should have been simple to answer, but somehow it wasn't. I deserved someone successful, someone ambitious, someone who could match my lifestyle and my goals. That was what I deserved, wasn't it? Someone who can build a future, I said. Someone stable. He set down his fork and looked at me for a long moment. "You know what I think," he said quietly. "I think you're scared." "Excuse me?" "You're scared that if you let yourself care about someone who doesn't fit your checklist, you might realize that the checklist doesn't matter as much as you thought it did." I opened my mouth to argue, to tell him he was wrong, that he didn't know anything about me. But before I could speak, his phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and something changed in his expression, something sharp and focused that hadn't been there before. "I need to take this," he said, standing up. "I'll be right back." He walked toward the restaurant entrance. Phone pressed his ear, and I watched him go with a mix of relief and confusion. Who was he to psychoanalyze me? To act like he understood anything about my life or my choices? I pulled out my phone again and found 3 more messages from Jessica, all asking how things were going, all filled with emojis and exclamation points. I started typing a response, something diplomatic about how we clearly weren't compatible, when I heard raised voices near the entrance. I looked up and froze. The man I'd been having dinner with, the guy in the torn jacket and scuffed boots, was standing by the door talking to someone in an expensive suit. And the someone in the expensive suit was practically bowing, calling him Mr. Chun. But before I could process what I was seeing, he turned back toward our table, and our eyes met across the restaurant. His expression was unreadable, but something in it made my blood run cold. What do you think just happened? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Mr. Chun. The name echoed in my head like a bell I couldn't unring. I watched him shake hands with the suit-wearing man, who practically tripped over himself backing away. The whole interaction lasted maybe 30 seconds, but those 30 seconds shattered everything I thought I knew about the man sitting across from me. He walked back to the table like nothing had happened, like he hadn't just been addressed with the kind of respect people reserve for CEOs and politicians. He sat down, picked up his fork, and continued eating his $12 pasta like the last few minutes were completely normal. I couldn't move, couldn't speak. My brain was doing gymnastics, trying to make sense of what I just witnessed. "Sorry about that," he said casually. "Work call." Work call? He'd told me he was between things. Between things didn't come with people in $1,000 suits, calling you Mr. and bowing like you own the place. Who was that? I managed to get the words out, though my voice sounded strange even to my own ears. Just someone I know from business, he said, not looking up from his plate. Business? What business? The unemployment business? My hands were shaking. I pressed them flat against my lap under the table, trying to steady myself. This didn't make sense. Nothing about this made sense. The torn jacket, the scuffed boots, the cheapest pasta on the menu. None of it matched what I'd just seen. You said you were between things. I said slowly, "What kind of things?" He finally looked up at me, and there was something in his eyes now, something that hadn't been there before. A sharpness, an intelligence that made me feel like I'd been playing checkers while he'd been playing chess. "I am between things," he said. "I'm deciding whether to expand into the Asian market or focus on consolidating our domestic operations. Our operations. Not a job. Operations." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "What do you do?" I asked again, but this time the question came out as a whisper. He set down his fork and leaned back in his chair, studying me with those dark eyes that suddenly seemed to see everything. "I run a company," he said simply. "Chen Industries. We do tech manufacturing and supply chain solutions. Maybe you've heard of it." Chen Industries. Oh, God. Oh, God. I had heard of it. Everyone had heard of it. It was one of the largest privately held companies in the state, maybe the country. They supplied components to half the major tech companies in Silicon Valley. The CEO was notoriously private, never did interviews, never appeared at public events. And I just spent the last hour insulting him. "You're lying," I said, but even as the words came out, I knew he wasn't. It all made sense now. The calm confidence. The way he didn't flinch when I ordered expensive food. The way he talked about money like it didn't matter. Because to him, it didn't. "I'm not lying," he said quietly. "But I understand why you'd think that." My face was burning. Every word I'd said came rushing back. The emphasis on my corporate job. The digs about him being unemployed. The judgment dripping from every sentence. I'd been so sure of myself. So certain that I was better than him. And I'd been completely, utterly wrong. "Why didn't you tell me?" The question came out sharper than I intended, defensive. Would it have mattered? Of course it would have mattered. The words were out before I could stop them, and as soon as I heard them, I wanted to take them back, because they proved everything he'd said earlier, about me being scared, about my checklist, about caring more about what someone had than who someone was. He didn't look angry. If anything, he looked sad, disappointed. "That's why I didn't tell you," he said softly. "I wanted to see who you were when you thought I had nothing. I wanted to know if you were someone who could see past the surface." "That's not fair," I protested. "You lied to me." "I never lied. I wore old clothes and ordered cheap food, but I never said I was poor. You assumed that all on your own." He was right, and I hated it. Hated him for being right. Hated myself more for proving him right. "Jessica set this up," I said, my mind racing. "She knew, didn't she?" "She knew who you were." "She did," he confirmed. "She thought we might be good for each other. She thought you needed to meet someone who would challenge you." Challenge me? This wasn't a challenge. This was a humiliation. A test I'd failed spectacularly. The waiter appeared with a check, and I watched in numb silence as the man I thought was broke pulled out a black credit card. Not just any credit card. The kind they only gave to people who spent 6 figures a year, without blinking. He signed the receipt without even looking at the total. We walked out of the restaurant into the cool night air, and I felt like I was moving through a dream, or a nightmare. I couldn't tell which. "I should go," I said, looking anywhere but at him. "Thank you for dinner." "Wait." His hand caught my arm, gentle but firm. "Can I ask you something?" I forced myself to meet his eyes. "What?" "If I'd walked in wearing a suit and told you up front that I was a CO, would you have treated me the same way?" The question hung between us like a challenge, like a mirror being held up to show me exactly who I was. "No," I admitted, because there was no point in lying now. "I wouldn't have." "Why not?" "Because..." I struggled to find words that didn't make me sound terrible and failed. "Because success matters. Because I want someone who's accomplished something. Because I deserve that." You keep saying you deserve things, he said, but you never ask what you're willing to give. The words hit like a slap. I stepped back, pulling my arm free. I give plenty, I said. I work hard. I built my career from nothing. I don't need some rich guy in disguise to tell me what I'm worth. I'm not telling you what you're worth, he said. I'm asking if you know the difference between worth and price. Before I could respond, a sleek black car pulled up to the curb. Not a taxi, not an Uber. A private car with a driver who stepped out and opened the back door without being asked. "This is me," he said, gesturing to the car. Then he turned back to me one last time. "For what it's worth, I think you're smart and driven and impressive. But I also think you're so focused on climbing the ladder that you've forgotten to look around and see who's climbing with you." He got into the car, and I stood on the sidewalk watching as it pulled away, the taillights disappearing into traffic. My phone buzzed. "Jessica." "Well, how did it go?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "I need to call you." But as I stood there on that empty sidewalk, designer purse clutched in my hands, expensive perfume doing nothing to mask the sick feeling in my stomach, I realized something. I didn't want to call Jessica. I didn't want to go home and analyze what had happened. I wanted to chase that car down and tell him he was wrong about me, except he wasn't wrong. And that was the worst part of all. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. That calm, knowing expression, the disappointment in his eyes when I'd admitted the truth, the way he'd driven off in that expensive car, while I stood there like an idiot on the sidewalk. By 6 a.m, I gave up on sleep entirely and went to the office early. Work had always been my escape, my proof that I was more than just my mistakes. But as I sat at my desk staring at marketing reports that suddenly seemed meaningless, I couldn't stop replaying the conversation in my head. You're so focused on climbing the ladder that you've forgotten to look around and see who's climbing with you. My phone rang. Jessica. I'd been avoiding her calls since last night, but I couldn't dodge her forever. Finally, she said when I picked up, "I've been dying here. Tell me everything." "Why didn't you warn me?" I asked instead of answering. Silence on the other end. Then, carefully, "Warn you about what?" "Don't play dumb, Jess. You knew who he was. You knew he was some tech billionaire, and you sent me in there blind." "First of all," Jessica said, her voice getting that edge it always did when she was about to lecture me, "he's not a billionaire. He's very successful, yes, but let's not exaggerate. Second, I didn't send you in blind. I sent you in equal." "Equal? How is that equal?" "Because if I told you he ran Chin Industries, you have shown up as the perfect version of yourself. Hair perfect, outfit perfect, conversation perfect. You would have been performing, not being real. And Marcus specifically asked me to set him up with someone genuine. Marcus. So that was his name. I realized with a jolt that I'd spent 2 hours with him and never even asked his name. I'd been too busy judging him to actually get to know him. "Well, congratulations," I said bitterly. He got genuine me, the version that insults people and makes assumptions and judges books by their covers. I'm sure he's thrilled. "Are you done feeling sorry for yourself?" Jessica asked, not unkindly. "I'm not feeling sorry for myself." "You absolutely are. Look, did you screw up?" "Yeah." "Did you let your worst qualities show?" "Also, yeah. But here's the thing, Sienna. He still wants to see you again." My heart stopped. "What?" "He called me this morning. Said last night was interesting. Said you were exactly what he expected and nothing like what he expected at the same time. He wants a second chance." "A second chance?" "Jess, I don't need a second chance. I need to forget last night ever happened." "Why?" "Because you're embarrassed? Because someone finally called you out on your stuff and you don't like it." I wanted to argue, but the word stuck in my throat. Because she was right. That was exactly why. "I don't know how to face him," I admitted quietly. "Then don't face him as a woman who messed up last night," Jessica said. "Face him as a woman who's willing to do better. That's all anyone can ask." After we hung up, I sat at my desk for a long time, Jessica's words running through my head. A second chance. Did I even want one? Part of me wanted to forget the whole thing, to write it off as a bad date and move on. But another part, a part one didn't want to examine too closely, kept thinking about the way he looked at me. Really looked at me. Like he was trying to see past all the armor I wore to whoever I was underneath. And maybe that's what scared me most. Not that he'd seen the worst parts of me, but that he'd seen through me entirely. My boss stopped by my desk around 10. "Sienna, got a minute?" I followed her into her office, grateful for the distraction. "I need you to take lead on a new account," she said, pulling up files on her computer. "Big tech company. They're looking to revamp their entire brand strategy. Could be a career-making project if you pull it off." My pulse quickened. This was exactly what I needed. Something to focus on besides my disastrous personal life. "What's the company?" I asked. She turned the screen toward me, and my stomach dropped. "Chun Industries." "You've got to be kidding me." I muttered. "What was that?" "Nothing." "When's the first meeting?" "Tomorrow morning, 10 sharp. Their CEO is apparently very hands-on with marketing decisions, so you'll be presenting directly to him and his executive team." Of course I would. Of course the universe would throw me directly back into Marcus Chen's path less than 24 hours after the worst date of my life. "Great," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll prepare some preliminary concepts tonight." As I walked back to my desk, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I hear we'll be working together. Looking forward to seeing what you can do. Marcus." My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the phone. How did he even get my number? "Jessica, probably." Of course, Jessica. I typed back, deleted it, typed again, deleted again. What was I supposed to say? Finally, I settled on something professional and distant. "Looking forward to presenting to your team." His response came immediately. "I meant what I said last night, about you being impressive. I'm curious to see how you handle business versus pleasure." I stared at the message for a long time before putting my phone away without responding. He wanted to see how I handled business? Fine. I'd show him exactly how I handled business. I'd walk into that meeting tomorrow with the best presentation I'd ever created, and I'd prove that whatever happened on that date, I was still damn good at my job. That night, I worked until 3 in the morning, pulling together market research, competitor analysis, brand positioning strategies. I built a presentation that would knock the socks off any executive team. Every slide was perfect. Every word was carefully chosen. Every data point supported my recommendations. By the time I finally crawled into bed, I felt ready. Not ready to face Marcus personally, maybe, but ready to face him professionally. And right now, that would have to be enough. I showed up to Chin Industries headquarters at 9:30, giving myself time to scope out the building before the meeting. The lobby alone was intimidating. All glass and steel and modern art. That probably cost more than my car. Security was tight. I had to show ID 3 times before they'd even let me to the elevator. The receptionist on the executive floor was friendly but professional. "Ms. Rodriguez, Mr. Chun is expecting you. Conference room B." She led me down a hallway lined with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. The conference room was massive, with a table that could seat 20 people and screens built into the walls. I set up my laptop, connected to their system, pulled up my presentation, and waited. At exactly 10 o'clock, the door opened, and Marcus walked in. He was wearing a suit today, dark navy, perfectly tailored, probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. His hair was styled, his shoes were polished, and he looked every inch the powerful CEO he actually was. But his eyes were the same, sharp and knowing and looking right through me. "Ms. Rodriguez," he said formally, extending his hand. "Thank you for coming." I shook his hand, keeping my expression professional. "Mr. Chun, thank you for the opportunity." Behind him, 3 other executives filed in, VP of Marketing, Director of Communications, and someone whose title I didn't catch but who looked important. They all took seats around the table, notepads and tablets at the ready. "Whenever you're ready," Marcus said, settling into the chair at the head of the table. I took a breath, clicked to the first slide, and began. For the next 45 minutes, I was in my element, This was what I was good at. This was where I shined. I walked them through market positioning, target demographics, messaging strategies. I showed them data that supported every recommendation. I anticipated their questions before they asked them. And through it all, Marcus watched me with an expression I couldn't read. When I finished, there was a moment of silence. Then the VP of marketing started clapping, and the others joined in. "That was exceptional," she said. "Truly impressive work on such short notice." The director of communications nodded. "I particularly like your approach to the Asian market expansion. Really fresh thinking." They asked questions. I answered them. They raised concerns. I addressed them. It was going perfectly, exactly as I planned. Finally, Marcus spoke. "Could we have the room, please?" The other executives exchanged glances but stood without argument, gathering their things and filing out. The door closed behind them with a soft click, and suddenly it was just the two of us in that massive conference room. "That was quite a presentation," he said. "Thank you. Very thorough, very polished, very professional." Something in his tone made me nervous, but he stood up and walked to the windows, hands in his pockets, looking out at the city below. But it felt safe, predictable, like you were more concerned with not making mistakes than with actually taking risks. The words stung more than they should have. Taking risks in business isn't always smart. "No," he agreed, turning to face me. "But playing it too safe means you never break through. You never create something that actually matters." "My strategy would work," I said defensively. "I'm sure it would. It's a good strategy, a solid strategy. But good and solid aren't what your industry needs right now. We need something bold, something that makes people stop and pay attention." He walked back to the table, closing the distance between us until he was standing close enough that I had to look up to meet his eyes. "Here's what I think," he said quietly. "I think you're capable of brilliance, but you're too scared of failing to let yourself be brilliant, in business and in life. You don't know me well enough to make that judgment." "Don't I? I've seen you twice now. Once when you thought I was nobody, and once when you knew I was somebody. And both times, you were performing, playing a part, being who you think you're supposed to be instead of who you actually are." "And who am I actually?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," he said, "but I'd like to find out." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a card. Not a business card. Something handwritten. "There's an art gallery opening tomorrow night. 7 o'clock. Come with me." Is that a request or a command? I threw away the entire presentation. Not literally. Of course. I saved it in a folder labeled Save Version, and then opened a blank document. For 3 hours, I just stared at that blank screen, Marcus's words echoing in my head. "You're capable of brilliance, but you're too scared of failing to let yourself be brilliant." He was wrong. He had to be wrong. I'd built my whole career on being smart, being strategic, being the person who didn't make mistakes. That wasn't being scared. That was being professional. Except I couldn't stop thinking about the look on his face when I'd finished presenting. Not impressed. Not disappointed. Just unsurprised. Like I'd done exactly what he'd expected, which somehow felt worse than failing. My phone rang. Mom. I almost didn't answer, but ignoring her calls only meant she'd show up at my apartment. "Hi, Mom." "Sienna Marie Rodriguez. Why haven't you called me back?" I left 3 messages. "I've been busy with work." "You're always busy with work. When are you going to be busy with your life?" I closed my eyes and counted to 5. We'd had this conversation 1,000 times. Mom didn't understand my career. Didn't understand why I worked 60-hour weeks. Didn't understand that I was trying to build something that mattered. Work is my life, Mom. "No, Mija. Work is what you do. Life is who you are, who you love, what makes you happy. When's the last time you were happy?" The question caught me off guard. When was the last time I'd been happy? Really, genuinely happy, not just satisfied with successful presentation or a good performance review. I couldn't remember. "I'm happy," I said, but it sounded hollow even in my own ears. "You're successful," Mom corrected. "That's not the same thing. Your father and I, we didn't come to this country and work ourselves a bone so you could be successful. We did it so you could be happy, so you could have choices we never had. And I'm grateful for that. Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, you're working just as hard as we did, but you're not building anything real. No partner, no family, no joy. I have joy, I protested weakly. When you're checking emails at midnight, when you're choosing work over dinner with your mother. Mija, success means nothing if you're alone at the end of it. After we hung up, I sat at my desk feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. 2 people in 2 days telling me essentially the same thing, that I was missing something, that I was so focused on success that I'd forgotten what success was even for. I picked up the card Marcus had given me. Heavy stock, expensive, the kind of thing rich people use for their fancy invitations. The gallery opening was tomorrow night. I could go, I could stay home. The choice was mine. But what would going mean? That I was admitting he was right about me? That I was willing to try something different? Or was I overthinking this like I overthought everything? I pulled up a new blank document and started writing. Not a presentation. Not bullet points or market analysis or safe, predictable strategies. Just ideas. Rough, unpolished, risky ideas. What if Chin Industries didn't just market their products? What if they marketed a philosophy? A lifestyle? What if instead of competing on price and quality like everyone else, they competed on meaning? The ideas came faster than I could type them. Some were terrible. Some were half-baked. But some were actually interesting, bold, different. By midnight, I had something that didn't look like any presentation I'd ever created. It was rough around the edges, full of concept that might not work, strategies that could backfire. But it was honest. It was real. It was me actually trying instead of just playing it safe. I saved the file and shut my laptop, feeling exhausted but weirdly energized at the same time. The next day crawled by. Every hour felt like 3. I kept checking the clock, kept looking at that invitation card sitting on my desk, kept changing my mind about whether I was actually going. At 5 o'clock, I gave up on getting any work done and went home. Stood in front of my closet for 20 minutes trying to figure out what come as yourself meant in terms of outfit choices. Every dress I owned was either too formal or too casual. Everything felt like a costume, like I was still trying to be someone I thought I should be. Finally, I settled on simple. Black jeans, a silk blouse, minimal jewelry. Nothing that screamed trying too hard. Nothing that screamed anything. Really, I got to the gallery at 7:15. Late enough to not seem desperate. Early enough to not be rude. The space was beautiful. White walls, soft lighting, modern sculptures, and paintings that probably cost more than my yearly salary. And everywhere, people, beautiful people in beautiful clothes, drinking beautiful wine, and discussing art in that pretentious way people discuss art at these kind of events. I almost turned around and left. Then I saw him. Marcus was standing near a sculpture that looked like twisted metal, but somehow seemed graceful. He was wearing jeans, too, I noticed. Dark jeans and a simple black shirt. No suit, no tie. Just him. He saw me at the same moment I saw him, and something crossed his face. Relief? Pleasure? Surprise? I couldn't tell. He walked over, 2 glasses of wine in hand, offered me one. You came, he said. You invited me. I did, but I wasn't sure you would. He studied my face for a moment. I'm glad you did. We stood there in awkward silence for a beat, and I realized I had no idea what to say to him. Every conversation we'd had so far had been either me insulting him or him analyzing me. How did normal people talk? The art is interesting. I tried. He was right. We were both carrying the weight of other people's expectations, both trying to prove we deserved our success. So how do we stop? I asked. Stop what? Being scared. Trying to prove ourselves. He was quiet for a moment, considering. I don't think we stop completely, but maybe we start proving things to ourselves instead of other people. Maybe we define success on our own terms. On Friday, I sent him the new presentation. Not the whole thing, just the concept. A teaser. He called me 30 seconds after I hit send. Is this real? He asked without preamble. Yes. Why? Because this is insane. This is brilliant. This is completely different from anything in our industry. My heart was racing. Is that good or bad? It's terrifying, he said, which means it's probably exactly what we need. Present it to the full board Monday morning, 9 sharp. The full board? Marcus, You can do this. Trust yourself as much as I trust you. He hung up before I could argue, leaving me staring at my phone with a mixture of excitement and sheer terror. The weekend passed in a blur of preparation and panic. I rehearsed the presentation 50 times, changing things, refining things, second-guessing everything. Saturday night, Marcus showed up at my apartment unannounced with pizza and wine. Stop overthinking, he said, setting the food on my kitchen counter. You've got this. What do they hate it? Then they hate it. But at least you'll have tried something real instead of just playing it safe. We ended up on my couch, presentation forgotten for the moment, talking about life and dreams and all the things we wanted that had nothing to do with work. He told me he wanted to travel more, to see parts of the world that weren't business trips and hotel conference rooms. I told him I wanted to write, to create things that weren't corporate marketing strategies. So why don't you, he asked. Write. Yeah, why don't you write? Because it's not practical. Because it doesn't pay bills. Because you're scared, he finished. Just like you were scared to take risks with the presentation. I hate that you're right about everything. I'm not right about everything, he said with a grin, but I'm right about you. You're capable of so much more than you let yourself believe. Something shifted in the air between us. The comfortable distance we'd been maintaining suddenly felt charged, electric. He was looking at me in a way that made my breath catch, and I realized we were sitting closer than we had been a moment ago. Sienna, he said quietly. Yeah, I'm going to kiss you now, if that's okay. It was more than okay. It was everything I didn't know I wanted. His lips met mine softly at first, tentative, asking permission, then deeper, more certain, as I kissed him back with everything I'd been holding in all week, all month, maybe my whole life. When we finally pulled apart, both breathless, he rested his forehead against mine. I wanted to do that since the first night, he admitted. The night I was awful to you? Even then, especially then, you were so fierce, so sure of yourself. Even when you were wrong, you were magnificent. We spent the rest of the weekend tangled up in each other and the presentation. Boundaries between work and whatever this was becoming completely blurred. By Sunday night, I felt ready. Not perfectly prepared, but genuinely ready to show them something real. Monday morning arrived with all the subtlety of a freight train. I put on my best suit, not because I was trying to impress anyone, but because it felt like armor, protection against whatever was about to happen. The boardroom at Chin Industries was even more intimidating than the conference room. 12 executives sat around a massive table, all of them older than me, all of them with decades more experience. Marcus sat at the head of the table, his expression carefully neutral. Whenever you're ready, Ms. Rodriguez, the CFO said. I clicked to the first slide and began. This time was different. This time I wasn't just presenting data and strategies. I was telling a story. The story of what Chin Industries could become if they stopped trying to compete and started trying to lead. If they built a brand around innovation, not just in technology, but in purpose. I showed them campaigns that would make people think differently about supply chains, about manufacturing, about the invisible technology that powered their daily lives. I proposed partnerships with artists and educators, creating content that inspired rather than just sold. It was risky. It was expensive. It was completely outside their current approach. And they loved it. Questions came rapid fire, but they weren't challenging questions. They were excited questions. How soon could this launch? What would the budget need to be? Who would they need to hire to execute this vision? I answered everything, riding the wave of their enthusiasm, barely believing this was happening. When I finished, the room erupted in discussion. Executives talking over each other, already planning implementation, already seeing possibilities. Marcus caught my eye across the table and smiled. Not his CEO smile, his real smile. The one that made my heart do complicated things. After the meeting ended and everyone filed out, he stayed behind. That was incredible, he said. You think they'll actually approve it? Are you kidding? They're probably fighting over who gets the run point on it right now. He walked around the table toward me. You did it. You took the risk and it paid off. I couldn't have done it without you pushing me. No, he said firmly. I didn't do this. You did. I just reminded you that you could. We stood there grinning at each other, like idiots until his assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Chen, your 10:30 is here. Reality crashed back. He was still a CEO with a company to run. I was still a consultant with other clients waiting. Dinner tonight? He asked. To celebrate? I'd like that. But as I packed up my laptop and headed for the elevator, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shift, that we were standing on the edge of something that would change everything. I had no idea how right I was. The restaurant he chose for dinner was nothing like the place we'd had our first date. This was intimate, quiet, the kind of spot where people went when they wanted to actually talk without being seen or heard by half the city. I arrived first, nerves making me early. The hostess led me to a private corner table, and I sat there checking my phone every 30 seconds like a teenager. When Marcus walked in, my breath caught. He was still in his suit from the meeting, tie loosened, looking tired but happy. He slid into the seat across from me and just looked at me for a long moment. Hi, he said. Hi yourself. Sorry I'm late. The board meeting ran long. They want to move forward with your proposal immediately. My heart skipped. Seriously? Seriously. Full budget approval, dedicated team, everything you asked for. They want you to lead the project. But I don't work for Chin Industries. Not yet, he said. But they're going to make you an offer. Director of Brand Innovation. New position. Your own team. Creative control. The works. I should have been thrilled. This was the kind of opportunity people spent their whole careers waiting for. But all I could think about was what it would mean for us. Marcus, I said carefully, if I work for Chin Industries, if I work for you, we can't. I know, he interrupted. That's why I'm stepping down. The world stopped. What? Not from the company entirely. I'll stay on the board, maintain ownership, but I'm hiring a new CEO to handle day-to-day operations. I've been thinking about it for months. Your presentation just confirmed it. You can't step down because of me. That's insane. I'm not stepping down because of you, he said. I'm stepping down because I've been running this company for 8 years and I'm exhausted. Because I've built something successful, but I've lost myself in the process. Because I want a life, not just a career. He reached across the table and took my hand. You made me realize that. You made me remember there's more to living than just working. Tears pricked at my eyes. I don't know what to say. Say you'll take the job. Say you'll let yourself be brilliant. Say you'll give us a real chance without all the complications of me being your boss. This is crazy, I said, but I was smiling through the tears. Probably. But isn't that better than playing it safe? We ordered food neither of us ate. Too busy talking about the future. About what he'd do with his time. About what I'd do with a position. About where we might go together when we weren't both drowning in work. I want to show you something, he said after dinner, pulling out his phone. I've been working on this for a week. He turned the screen toward me. It was a website. Simple, clean, beautiful. My name at the top, followed by writing samples I didn't recognize. What is this? Your writing portfolio, he said. I hired someone to design it. Those samples are pieces you've written over the years. Emails, memos, internal documents. You're a beautiful writer, Sienna. You just never gave yourself permission to see it. I stared at the screen, at my words arranged like they mattered, like they were art instead of just work product. Something cracked open inside my chest. Why would you do this? Because someone needed to show you what I see when I look at you. Someone who's talented and brilliant and deserves to take up space in the world without apologizing for it. I was full on crying now, mascara probably running, not caring at all. I think I'm falling in love with you, I said, the words escaping before I could stop them. His expression softened into something so tender it hurt to look at. I think I fell in love with you the first night, when you were being awful to me. I just knew it would take you a while to catch up. We left the restaurant hand in hand, walking through the city streets with no destination in mind. Just walking, talking, being together without performance or pretense. So what happens now? I asked. Now you accept the job. I transition out of the CEO role. We figure out this thing between us without any power dynamics or complications. That sounds suspiciously like a plan. I'm learning to plan less and live more, he said. You're a terrible influence. We ended up at his apartment, a stunning penthouse I'd only seen in architecture magazines. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city, modern furniture that was somehow both expensive and comfortable, art that looked like it belonged in museums. This is where you live? I asked, stunned. This is where I sleep sometimes, he corrected. I haven't really lived anywhere in years, just existed in spaces between meetings. We stood at the windows looking out at the city lights, his arms wrapped around me from behind, and for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely at peace, not anxious about the next thing, not worried about what people thought, not performing for anyone, just being. Stay tonight, he said quietly. No pressure. Just stay. I turned in his arms to face him. Okay. We moved his bedroom, that nervous electricity back in the air. He kissed me slowly, thoroughly, like we had all the time in the world. And we did. For once, we actually did. What happened next was tender and intense and perfect in all the imperfect ways first times are when you actually care about the person you're with. When it's not just physical, but emotional, vulnerable, real. Afterward, we lay tangled together, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder, both of us too awake to sleep despite the late hour. Tell me something you've never told anyone, he said. I'm terrified this isn't real, I admitted, that I'm going to wake up and realize I dreamed all of this. The job, us, everything. It's real, he promised. I'm real. This is real. Tell me something you've never told anyone. I countered. He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, I'm scared I won't know who I am without the company. That I built my whole identity around being CEO, and without that, I'm nobody. I propped myself up on one elbow to look at him. You're not nobody. You're Marcus. You're the guy who tests people because you've been hurt. You're the guy who remembers that I like Thai food. You're the guy who built a website for someone else's dreams before taking care of his own. And that's enough? It's more than enough. It's everything. We fell asleep like that, wrapped up in each other in promises and possibilities. The next morning, I woke up to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and the smell of coffee. Marcus was already up, standing in the kitchen in sweatpants and nothing else, looking unfairly attractive for someone who'd gotten maybe 4 hours of sleep. Morning, he said, handing me a mug. I wasn't sure how you took it, so I made it like I take mine and hope for the best. I took a sip. Perfect. Of course it was perfect. So, I said, settling onto a bar stool, we're really doing this? We're really doing this. People are going to talk. About us. About you stepping down. About me getting the position. Let them talk, he said simply. We know the truth. That's what matters. My phone buzzed. My boss. I took a breath and answered. The conversation was quick, professional. She congratulated me on the Chin Industries approval. Asked if I'd heard about their offer. Told me the firm would be sad to lose me, but understood this was too good an opportunity to pass up. Just like that, my old life was over and my new one was beginning. Well, I said, setting down the phone, I guess I'm unemployed for about 48 hours until the Chin Industries offer becomes official. What do you want to do with your last days of freedom? Marcus asked. Honestly? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Just exist without obligations for a minute. So that's what we did. We spent the day doing nothing productive. Watched movies, ordered takeout, talked about everything and nothing. He showed me his old sketchbooks from before he started the company, filled with designs and ideas he'd never pursued. I showed him essays I'd written in college, dreams of being a journalist before practical concerns took over. We both gave up a lot to get where we are. I observed. Maybe, he said, or maybe we were just waiting for the right time to pick those dreams back up, That evening, Jessica called demanding details. "So you're dating your future boss?" she said when I'd finished catching her up. "He's stepping down. He won't be my boss." "Still, this is like a movie. A really good movie. You should write it." Marcus said the same thing. "Smart man. I approve. Officially, you have Jessica's blessing to continue this relationship." "Oh, good. I was waiting for that." "Shut up. You love me. Also, I'm taking full credit for this when you two get married. Just so we're clear." After we hung up, I found Marcus watching me with an amused expression. "Jessica approves." I reported. "Good to know. Should I be worried about her threatening me if I hurt you?" "Absolutely. She's terrifying when she wants to be." Wednesday morning came too fast. I had to go home, get my life organized, prepare for the transition. Reality was crashing back after our perfect bubble of 2 days. "I don't want to leave," I admitted. "So, don't. Move in." I laughed. "We've been dating for like a week." "That's insane." "We've been dating for a week, but I've known you're for me since that first night. Why waste time pretending otherwise?" "Because normal people don't move in together after a week." "When have either of us been normal?" He had a point. But still, moving in together felt like jumping off a cliff without knowing if there was water below. "Let me think about it," I said. "Take all the time you need. The offer stands." I went home to my apartment, and it felt wrong. Too small. Too empty. Too much like the old version of my life that I was already outgrowing. My mom called that afternoon. "I heard from Jessica," she said, "about the new job, about the man." "Of course you did." "I'm proud of you, Mija. Not for the job, for taking a chance, for letting yourself be happy." Hearing those words from her broke something loose. All the pressure I've been carrying for years, the need to prove I was worth the sacrifices my parents made, suddenly felt less heavy. "Thanks, Mom." "So when do I meet him?" "Soon. I promise. He better be good enough for my daughter." "He is," I said. "He really is." That night, I stood in my apartment, looking at all the things I'd accumulated. The expensive furniture, the designer clothes, the trappings of success I'd worked so hard to achieve. And none of it felt as important as the person waiting for me across town. I texted Marcus. "Is the offer still open?" His response came immediately. "Always." Then "I'm coming home." Moving in together was chaos. Wonderful, messy, completely impractical chaos. I showed up at his place Friday night with 2 suitcases and a houseplant, and he looked at me like I'd hung the moon. "That's it?" he asked. "2 suitcases?" "For now. I'll get the rest later." I didn't want to wait. He pulled me inside and kissed me thoroughly enough that we forgot about the suitcases for a solid hour. The weekend was a blur of making space. He cleared out closets, rearranged furniture, insisted I put my things everywhere so it felt like home. We argued about where to put the coffee maker, how to organize the kitchen, whether his modern art or my family photos should take priority on the walls. Normal couple things. Domestic things. Things I'd never let myself want because they seemed impractical. "This is weird, right?" I said Sunday morning, standing in what was now our kitchen. "This shouldn't work. We're moving too fast." "Probably," Marcus agreed. "But does it feel wrong?" It didn't. That was the strange part. It felt completely, impossibly right. Monday I started at Chin Industries officially. My own office, my own team, my own budget to build something from scratch. It should have been terrifying. Instead, it felt like finally stepping into myself. The team Marcus had assembled for me was young, hungry, creative. People who weren't afraid to challenge convention, who wanted to build something that mattered instead of just something that sold. Our first meeting was electric. Ideas flying, energy building, everyone feeding off each other's enthusiasm. This was what I'd been missing at my old firm. This sense of collaboration, of creating something together instead of just executing someone else's vision. "So," one of the team members said, "we heard you're dating the former CEO." I'd been expecting this. The curiosity, the gossip. I prepare a professional response about maintaining boundaries, about keeping personal and professional separate. Instead, I said, I am, and I'm not going to pretend otherwise or apologize for it. What I will promise is that it won't affect my work or my decisions. This project succeeds or fails based on what we create, not on who I'm sleeping with. Silence for a beat. Then someone laughed, and the tension broke. Fair enough. Let's make something amazing. The weeks that followed were exhausting and exhilarating in equal measure. Long days at the office building campaigns. Longer nights at home with Marcus talking through ideas, challenges, victories. We fell into a rhythm that shouldn't have worked, but somehow did. He was transitioning out of the CEO role gradually, training his replacement, making sure the company was in good hands. I watched him let go of something he'd built from nothing, and it wasn't easy. Some days he'd come home frustrated, second-guessing his decision. What if I'm making a mistake? He asked one night. What if the company falls apart without me? Then you'll deal with it, I said. But it won't. You built something strong. It doesn't need you hovering over it every second, says a woman who checks her work email at midnight. I'm learning. I defended slowly, very slowly. But he was right. I was still struggling with the need to prove myself, to be perfect, to show everyone I deserved the position. Old habits died hard. The breakthrough came 6 weeks in. We were presenting the first phase of the campaign to the board, and I'd been up for 2 nights straight, making sure every detail was perfect. I was running on coffee and anxiety, and it showed. The presentation was good, maybe even great, but I could feel myself performing again, trying to be who they wanted me to be instead of just showing them what we created. Halfway through, the new CEO, a woman named Jennifer whom Marcus had personally recruited, stopped me. Sienna, she said gently, you're doing that thing where you apologize for your ideas while presenting them. Stop. We hired you because you're brilliant. Own it. The words hit like cold water. She was right. I'd been so busy trying to prove I deserved to be there that I'd forgotten I'd already proven it. I took a breath, closed my laptop, and just talked. No slides, no scripts. Just me explaining what we'd built and why it mattered. The room was silent when I finished. Then Jennifer started clapping, and the others joined in. That, she said, was what we needed to see. Now let's make it happen. I called Marcus as soon as the meeting ended, practically vibrating with excitement. They approved everything. Full campaign, full budget, full creative control. I never doubted they would, he said, and I could hear the smile in his voice. Want to celebrate tonight? Actually, I have something planned. Be home by 6. Home. When had his apartment become home? When had we become we? Somewhere between the chaos of moving in and the exhaustion of new jobs and the quiet moments of just being together, it had happened without me noticing, which somehow made it even better. I got home at 6 to find candles everywhere and Marcus in the kitchen, actually cooking. You cook? I asked, stunned. I'm learning. Don't get too excited. It's just pasta. But it wasn't just pasta. It was effort. It was thought. It was him trying because I mattered to him. We ate on the balcony overlooking the city, the same view we'd stood at that first night, and it felt like a lifetime ago and yesterday all at once. I have something to tell you, he said as we finished eating. My stomach dropped. Those words never meant anything good. Okay, I've been working on something. A project. Something I wanted to do for years, but never had time for. He pulled out his tablet and showed me sketches. Beautiful, intricate designs for sustainable architecture. Buildings that work with nature instead of against it. I want to start a foundation. Fun projects like this. Create things that help people and the planet instead of just making money. Marcus, that's incredible. I want you to be part of it. Not work for it, but partner with me on it. Use your marketing brain to help tell stories about why this matters. I don't know anything about architecture or sustainability. You know about connection, about making people care. That's what matters. I looked at the designs and his face illuminated by candlelight, at the life we were building together, and felt something settle deep in my chest. This was what success actually looked like. Not money or titles, or proving yourself, but finding someone who challenged you to be better, who believed in your dreams even when you didn't, who built a life with you instead of just existing next to you. I'm in, I said. Whatever you need, I'm in. He leaned across the table and kissed me, and I tasted possibility and promise, and everything I'd been too scared to want. I love you, he said. In case that wasn't clear. It was clear, I said, but I like hearing anyway. I love you too. We spent the rest of the night talking about the foundation, about campaigns, about the future. At some point we moved inside, tangled up together on the couch, tablets and notebooks spread everywhere, planning something that mattered. My phone buzzed. My mother. I'm bringing your father to the city next weekend. We're meeting this man of yours. No arguments. I showed Marcus the text, and he laughed. Should I be nervous? Terrified. My dad's going to interrogate you about your intentions. My intentions are to love you and build a life with you and never let you doubt your worth again. You should probably phrase it differently. That sounds like a speech. It's the truth. Then tell them the truth. That's all they really want. That night, lying in bed with Marcus already asleep beside me, I thought about how far I'd come, from the woman who judged a man for his clothes to someone who was learning to look deeper, from someone who measured success by titles and paychecks to someone who measured it by happiness and purpose. I wasn't perfect. I still worked too much, still stressed about things I couldn't control, still had moments where I felt like an imposter pretending to belong. But I was trying, learning, growing, and I had someone beside me who saw all my flaws and loved me anyway, who challenged me to be better while accepting who I was right now. That was worth more than all the career success in the world. My phone lit up with a text from Jessica. Dinner this weekend? I need to properly interrogate your boyfriend about his intentions. I typed back. My parents beat you to it. But yes, you can double team him. Perfect. Can't wait to embarrass you. I fell asleep smiling, dreaming about futures and foundations and families that chose you. In the morning, everything changed. The news broke at 7 a.m. I woke up to my phone exploding with notifications, messages, calls. Marcus was already up, pacing the bedroom with his own phone pressed to his ear, his expression dark. What's happening? I asked, heart already racing. He held up a hand, still listening to whoever was on the phone. I understand. Yes. Call the lawyers. I'll be there in an hour. He hung up and sat on the edge of the bed, looking exhausted already, and the day had barely started. Someone leaked information about our relationship, he said. To the press. They're calling it scandal, saying I stepped down to avoid conflict of interest, saying you only got the job because we're together. The words hit like physical blows. This was my worst nightmare. Everything I'd worked for dismissed, reduced to who I was sleeping with. Who would do that? I don't know. Someone at the company. Probably someone who didn't like the changes, who wanted to make trouble. I grabbed my phone and started scrolling. The headlines were brutal. Former CEO steps down after secret relationship with new hire. Conflict of interest at Chin Industries? Did she sleep her way to the top? Each one worse than the last. Each one reducing me to a stereotype. A gold digger. A woman who used her body instead of her brain. I have to resign, I said, already reaching for my laptop. What? No, absolutely not. Marcus, look at these. They're destroying my reputation. They're questioning your judgment. If I resign, it stops. The story goes away. The story doesn't go away, he said firmly. It just changes to woman forced to resign after relationship exposed. Either way, they win. Either way, they control the narrative. So what do? We tell the truth. All of it. We get ahead of this instead of running from it. Within 2 hours, we were at Chin Industries headquarters. Jennifer had called an emergency board meeting. The conference room was packed. Board members, executives, legal team, PR team. Everyone looking at me like I was a problem to be solved. Let's be clear about what happened, Jennifer said, taking control of the meeting before anyone else could speak. Marcus made a decision to step down months before he met Sienna. The transition was already in motion. Their relationship happened after he'd already initiated that process. But she got the position after they started dating. One of the board members pointed out, She got the position because she presented the most innovative campaign proposal we've seen in years. Jennifer shot back. I've reviewed the entire process. There was no favoritism, no conflict of interest. She earned this position. The optics still look bad, the PR director said. We need to do damage control. No, I said, surprised at myself. We need to tell the truth. Everyone turned to look at me. I know how this looks, I continued. I know what people will say. That I slept my way into this job, that I'm using Marcus for his money, that I'm not qualified to be here. And I could spend the next year trying to prove them wrong through my work. Or I could address it head on. What are you proposing? Jennifer asked. A press conference. Me and Marcus. We tell our story. The real story. No hiding, no spin. Just honesty. The room erupted in objections. Too risky. Too personal. It would just feed the media frenzy. But Marcus was looking at me with something like pride. I think she's right, he said. We've been hiding because we were afraid of this exact situation. But hiding makes us look guilty. Transparency is our only option. The debate raged for another hour, but eventually we won. Press conference scheduled for that afternoon. 4 o'clock. Every major outlet invited. I spent the hours between the meeting and the press conference throwing up in the bathroom and writing notes I immediately deleted. What was I supposed to say? How did you defend a relationship that looked exactly like what they were accusing it of being? Jessica called. I saw the news. Are you okay? No. I'm about to do a press conference, and I have no idea what I'm going to say. Then don't plan it. Just tell them what you told me. About how you misjudged him. About how he challenged you. About how you fell in love with someone who saw you for who you really were. That's the story. Tell that story. She was right. The story wasn't about timelines or positions or optics. It was about two people finding each other and being brave enough to build something real. At 4 o'clock, I walked into a room full of cameras and reporters and judgment. Marcus was beside me, solid and steady. Jennifer introduced us, gave a brief statement about the company's position, then turned the microphone over to us. I looked out at all those faces, all those cameras, all that scrutiny, and I took a breath. My name is Sienna Rodriguez, I said, and I'm here to tell you about the worst first date I ever had. Surprised laughter rippled through the room. I told them everything, about showing up expecting someone polished and finding someone in torn jeans, about judging him, insulting him, proving every shallow stereotype about people who care too much about money, about him calling me out on it, challenging me to be better, pushing me to take risks I've been too scared to take. I didn't fall in love with Marcus Chan because he was rich. I said, I fell in love with him despite thinking he was broke. I fell in love with someone who saw through all my defenses and made me want to be a better person. And yes, we started dating around the same time I joined Chin Industries. But I earned my position through my work, not through my relationship. Marcus took over, explaining the timeline, the decision to step down, the separation between his personal life and business operations. He was calm, factual, professional. Then he looked at me, and his expression softened. I've built a successful company, he said. I've made a lot of money. I've achieved everything society says you're supposed to achieve. But none of that mattered until I met someone who challenged me to think about what success actually means. Sienna didn't need my money or my position. She needed someone to believe in her as much as she was learning to believe in herself. And I needed someone to remind me that there's more to life than work. The questions came fast after that, pointed, probing, some designed to trip us up, but we answered honestly. Sometimes awkwardly, sometimes emotionally, but always truthfully. Finally, a reporter in the back stood up. How do you respond to people who say this relationship is inappropriate? That even without direct conflict of interest, it creates the appearance of favoritism. I looked at Marcus, then back at the reporter. I respond by saying that human beings are complicated. I said, life doesn't happen in neat, appropriate boxes. Sometimes you meet someone at the wrong time in the wrong circumstances, and you have two choices. You can walk away because it's messy and complicated, or you can be transparent about it and do the work to make it right. We chose transparency. We chose honesty. And we'll continue choosing that every day. The press conference ended, and we walked out together into a sea of camera flashes. My phone was already buzzing with reactions. Some positive, some negative. Most just surprised we'd been so open. Back at the office, Jennifer pulled me aside. That was either the bravest or stupidest thing I've ever seen, she said. But it was authentic. And in the end, that's what matters. You showed them you're not afraid, that you have nothing to hide. Will it be enough? Time will tell. But you gave yourself the best chance possible. That night, Marcus and I collapsed on the couch, emotionally drained, watching news coverage of our press conference. We just told our entire relationship story to the world. I said, "That's insane." "Completely insane," he agreed. Also kind of romantic, in a terrifying way. "My mother called. I saw you on TV. You were magnificent." "I was terrified." "That's what made you magnificent. You were scared and you did it anyway. That's courage, Mija." After we hung up, I curled into Marcus's side, feeling the weight of the day settling into my bones. What if this ruins everything? I asked, what if the board changes their mind? What if the campaign fails because people are too busy gossiping about us to pay attention to the work? Then we deal with it, he said. Simply, together. That's what this is, right? Being together means handling the hard stuff as a team. I'm not good at teams. I'm good at doing everything myself and then being stressed about it. Then it's a good thing you're learning. The next few days were brutal. Think pieces about our relationship flooded the internet. Some supported us, calling us refreshingly honest. Others condemned us, saying we'd crossed professional lines. Social media was a war zone of opinions. But something unexpected happened. The campaign launched, and people paid attention. Not because of the scandal, but because the work was good, really good. The message resonated. The visuals were striking. The strategy was sound. Slowly, the conversation shifted from did she deserve the job to look at what she's doing with the job. A week after the press conference, Jennifer called me into her office. The board met this morning, she said. They reviewed everything. The press response, the campaign metrics, the initial feedback. They're standing by their decision. You keep the position, full support, no restrictions. I felt tears threaten. Thank you. Don't thank me. Thank yourself. You did the work. You proved yourself. The relationship was just noise. Your talent is what matters. That weekend, my parents came to visit. My father, who'd been silent through all the media coverage, pulled me aside. I was angry when I first saw the news, he admitted. I thought maybe this man had taken advantage of you somehow. But then I watched that press conference, and I saw how he looked at you. How you looked at him. That's not someone using you, Mija. That's someone who loves you. You approve? I approve of anything that makes you happy. And he makes you happy. I can see it. Dinner with my parents and Marcus was chaotic and loud and perfect. My mother asked 1,000 questions. My father grilled him about the foundation, about his plans, about his intentions. Jessica showed up uninvited and made everything worse and better at the same time. So when's the wedding? She asked loudly over dessert. Marcus and I looked at each other, both blushing. Jessica, I warned. What? You've already moved in together and survived a media scandal. Might as well make it official. We've been dating for 2 months. And you knew after 2 weeks. Jessica shot back. Stop overthinking everything. My mother raised her glass. I agree with Jessica. When you know, you know. Can we please not plan my wedding at our first family dinner? I begged, but I was smiling. Because even though it was embarrassing and chaotic and way too fast, there was something comforting about everyone assuming we had a future together. Like it was inevitable. Like we were already a sure thing. After my parents left, Marcus and I cleaned up the kitchen together in comfortable silence. Your family's great, he said. They're a lot. They love you. That's not a lot. That's everything. I put down the dish I was washing and turned to face him. Jessica was entirely wrong, you know. About what? About us. About knowing. I do know. I've known for a while now. He set down his own dish and pulled me close. Known what? That this is it for me. You're it for me. I don't need time to be sure. I'm already sure. Something shifted in his expression. Something deep and certain. I bought a ring, he said quietly. My heart stopped. What? 3 weeks ago. I've been carrying it around trying to figure out the right moment. But maybe there is no right moment. Maybe there's just the truth. He pulled a small box from his pocket, opened it to reveal a simple, beautiful ring that looked nothing like the flashy diamonds I'd once thought I wanted, and everything like something I'd actually wear. Sienna Rodriguez, he said, not getting down on one knee, just standing there in our kitchen with dish soap on his hands. I love you. I love how you challenge me. I love how you're learning to believe in yourself. I love how you're not afraid to mess up as long as you try. Will you marry me? I should have thought about it. Should have considered the timing, the optics, what people would say. Should have worried about moving too fast or making impulsive decisions. Instead, I said yes. He slipped the ring on my finger, and it fit perfectly. Of course it did. We stood there in the kitchen, kissing like teenagers until my phone buzzed. Jessica, tell me you said yes. How did you? He asked my permission last week. Tell me you said yes. I said yes. She screamed loud enough that Marcus could hear it through the phone. I'm calling your mother. We're planning this wedding. You have no say in it. Jessica, but she'd already hung up. We're getting married. I said, still trying to process it. We're getting married, Marcus confirmed. Are you freaking out? Surprisingly, no. Are you? Surprisingly, no. We looked at each other and started laughing. The kind of laughter that comes from sheer relief and joy and the absurdity of finding someone who fits when you weren't even looking. That night we lay in bed making ridiculous plans. A small wedding or a big one. Soon or later. Traditional or completely unconventional. What do you actually want? He asked. I thought about it. About all the weddings I'd been to, all the expectations, all the pressure to make it perfect. I want something real, I said finally. Not about impressing people or following traditions. Just us making promises in front of people we love. I can do real. Good. Because that's all I know how to do anymore. You ruined me for pretense. You're welcome. Planning a wedding while launching a major campaign, while dealing with media scrutiny, was possibly the worst decision I'd ever made, but also somehow the best. Jessica appointed herself wedding planner without asking. My mother called daily with suggestions that ranged from reasonable to completely insane. Marcus's mother, who I'd met exactly once over video chat, flew in from Seattle and immediately bonded with my mother over the shared goal of making our wedding perfect. This is what we get for having mothers who actually like us, Marcus said as we hid in his office, listening to them debate flower arrangements in the living room. Your office isn't even at your office anymore. I pointed out. You can't hide here. Watch me. But he was smiling. The transition out of the CEO role was complete, and he was thriving. The foundation was taking shape, with the first projects already in development. He was working less and living more, and it showed in everything from his stress levels to the way he laughed more easily. I was learning to do the same. The campaign was exceeding expectations, but I was making sure it didn't consume me. I left the office at reasonable hours. I took weekends off. I delegated instead of trying to do everything myself. It wasn't easy. Old habits kept creeping back, but every time I felt myself slipping into workaholic mode, Marcus would remind me that the work would always be there. Life was what happened around it. 3 months after the press conference, we did an interview with a major business publication, not about the scandal, but about our work, the campaign, the foundation, what we were building together. The journalist was tough but fair. You both made significant career changes in the past 6 months. Do you ever regret the timing? Wonder if you made emotional decisions rather than practical ones. I looked at Marcus, then back at the journalist. I used to think practical meant safe. That emotional meant weak. But the best decision I ever made was an emotional one. saying yes to a blind date I didn't want to go on. Everything good in my life came from that one moment of being brave enough to try something that scared me. And you, the journalist asked Marcus, do you regret stepping down? Not for a second. I built a successful company, but I was drowning in it. Now I'm building a life. The company is thriving under Jennifer's leadership. The foundation is doing work that matters. And I get to do it all with someone who pushes me to be better. That's not a compromise. That's winning. The article came out 2 weeks later. The headline, Success Redefined, How Two People Rebuilt Their Lives Around What Actually Matters. It went viral, not because it was scandalous, but because it was honest. People responded to the vulnerability, the admission that we'd both been lost in different ways and found each other. My inbox flooded with messages. Women thanking me for being honest about struggling with perfectionism. Men thanking Marcus for talking about the pressure of success. Young professionals asking how we learned to prioritize life over career. We accidentally became role models. I said, scrolling through messages. Is that good or bad? Terrifying, but also kind of cool. Maybe our mess can help someone else's mess make sense. The wedding planning continued. We'd settled on something small. Just immediate family and close friends. A ceremony at a botanical garden, followed by dinner at our favorite restaurant. Nothing fancy or Instagram perfect. Just real. I want to write my own vows, I told Marcus one night. Okay, me too. But I'm terrible at writing emotional things without overthinking them. So write them messy. Write them real. That's what vows should be anyway. I tried. I really did. But every attempt felt either too clinical or too sappy. Too much or not enough. Finally, I called Jessica. I can't figure out what to say. I admitted, how do you promise someone forever when everything feels so uncertain? You don't promise certainty, she said. You promise to show up, to try, to keep choosing them even when it's hard. That's what forever actually means. Her words unlocked something. I stopped trying to write poetry or profound statements. I just wrote the truth. The wedding was set for a Saturday in October. The weather cooperated, giving us one of those perfect fall days that felt like a gift. The botanical garden was stunning, all autumn colors and golden light. I stood in a small room getting ready, my mother fussing with my dress, Jessica fixing my hair, both of them crying before the ceremony even started. You look beautiful, my mother said, tears streaming down her face. Mom, you're going to make me cry and ruin my makeup. Let yourself cry, Mija. This is a day for feeling everything. There was a knock on the door. My father, looking uncomfortable in his suit, but smiling. It's time, he said. We walked down a path lined with flowers and faces I loved. I saw Marcus's mother in the front row, tissue already in hand. I saw Jennifer and my team from work. I saw Marcus's friends and mine, all the people who'd supported us through everything. And at the end of the path, Marcus, wearing a suit that fit perfectly, looking at me like I was the only person in the world. My father handed me over with a whispered, "Be happy, Mija. That's all that matters." The ceremony was short and sweet. The officiant talked about love as choice, as commitment, as showing up every day and trying to be better. Then it was time for vows. Marcus went first. Sienna, you crashed into my life pretending to be something you weren't. And in the process, you helped me stop pretending too. You taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness. That taking risks is how you actually live. That love isn't about finding someone perfect. It's about finding someone who makes you want to be better. I promise to keep challenging you, to keep believing in you when you doubt yourself, to keep building a life with you that's messy and real and ours. I promise to love you on your worst days and your best days and all the regular days in between. Forever. I was already crying. So much for the makeup. I took a breath and read what I'd written. Marcus, I showed up to our first date with a checklist. You weren't on it. You were everything I didn't think I wanted and exactly what I needed. You saw through all my defenses, all my pretense, all my fear. And you loved me anyway. Not despite my flaws, but with them. You taught me that success isn't about perfection. It's about purpose. It's about building something that matters with someone who matters. I promise to keep being brave, to keep taking risks, to keep choosing you even when it's scary. I promise to build a life with you that's about joy, not just achievement, about connection, not just accomplishment. I promise to love you with everything I am and everything I'm still becoming, forever. We exchange rings, simple bands that matched, that we picked out together at a small jewelry store instead of somewhere expensive and impersonal. I now pronounce you married, the officiant said. You may kiss. Marcus pulled me close and kissed me while everyone cheered, and I thought about how far we'd both come, from that disastrous first date to this moment, from pretending to be someone we weren't to finally being exactly who we were meant to be. The reception was loud and joyful and imperfect. The speeches were too long. The food was slightly cold by the time everyone was served. Someone spilled wine on the tablecloth. It was perfect. Jessica's toast made everyone cry. I set them up as a favor to Marcus. He asked me to introduce him to someone real, someone who wouldn't care about his money. So naturally, I chose someone who would absolutely care about his money and sent him in disguise. It was the best, worst idea I ever had, because Sienna needed someone to call her out on her stuff, and Marcus needed someone to remind him that money isn't the same as meaning. They found each other by being their worst selves first, and that's the most romantic thing I've ever seen. My father's toast was shorter, but just as moving. When Sienna was little, she used to build towers out of blocks, not to play with them, just to prove she could build them taller than anyone else. She's been doing that her whole life, building towers, proving herself, reaching higher. But Marcus taught her something I couldn't, that the best things in life aren't built alone. They're built with someone else. Together, that's what matters. Not how high you climb, but who's climbing with you. We danced to a song we'd picked because the lyrics made us laugh. We cut a cake that Jessica had ordered against our wishes because she insisted every wedding needed cake. We celebrated with people we loved until late into the night. Finally, exhausted and happy, we said goodbye to the last guests and headed home. We're married, I said in the car, looking at the ring on my finger. We're married, Marcus confirmed. How does it feel? Exactly the same and completely different. Good different, the best different. At home, we changed out of our wedding clothes and collapsed on the couch in sweatpants, looking at photos people had already posted online. Look at your mom crying, Marcus said, showing me a picture. Look at your mom and my mom hugging, I countered. We scrolled through images of our day, of our people, of this life we were building together. Thank you, I said suddenly. For what? For pushing me, for challenging me, for not letting me settle for being successful when I could be happy instead. Thank you for giving me a chance even after I tested you, for being brave enough to try something scary, for building this with me. We fell asleep on the couch, still in our sweatpants, phone still in hand, too tired to move to the bedroom. In the morning, I woke up to messages from around the world. The business article had been shared millions of times. People were calling our story inspiring, hopeful, proof that you could have both career success and personal happiness. We're accidentally famous, I told Marcus, showing him the notifications. Should we do something with that? Use the platform for something good. Like what? Like starting a program. Mentorship for young professionals. Teaching them that success doesn't have to mean sacrificing everything else. That they can build careers and lives. The idea sparked something in both of us. By the end of breakfast, we were sketching out plans. A foundation within the foundation. Programs of mentorship, for work-life balance, for redefining success. This is what we do on our honeymoon? I asked, laughing. Plan another project? We're not on our honeymoon yet. That's next week. Paris, remember? And we're not bringing laptops or work or any of this. Just us. Can we really do that? Just stop working for a week? We're going to learn. Together. Paris was magic. Not because of the city, though it was beautiful, but because for 7 days, we were just us. No phones, no emails, no obligations. Just two people exploring and eating and being present. We got lost in the Marais. We ate too much bread and cheese. We visited museums and argued about art. We sat at cafes for hours doing nothing but talking and watching people. I forgot what this felt like. I said one afternoon, sitting by the Seine, just existing without agenda. It's scary at first, Marcus admitted. I kept wanting to check my phone, make sure everything was okay without us. And everything's fine. The world keeps spinning. The companies keep running. Turns out we're not as essential as we thought. It was both humbling and liberating. On our last night in Paris, we found a tiny restaurant down a side street. No tourists, just locals. The food was simple but perfect. The wine was cheap but delicious. I want to remember this, I said. Not the fancy stuff. This, the real stuff. Then let's make sure we keep doing it. The real stuff. Even when we get home and life gets crazy again. We made promises over that dinner. To take one day a week completely off. To travel at least twice a year with no work allowed. To keep checking in with each other, making sure we weren't slipping back into old patterns. I'm going to mess up, I warned. I'm going to get stressed and start working too much and forget to leave the office at reasonable times. Probably, he agreed. And I'm going to get too focused on a foundation and forget that rest is productive too. So we'll remind each other. That's what partners do. Back home, life resumed its normal chaos. But different chaos. Better chaos. The mentorship program launched to overwhelming response. Hundreds of applications from young professionals desperate for guidance on how to balance ambition with actual living. We couldn't accept everyone, but we created online resources, webinars, content that could reach more people. The Foundation's first sustainable housing project broke ground. Marcus was there every week, not micromanaging, but participating, learning, being present for something he created. My campaign won industry awards. But more importantly, it changed how Chin Industries was perceived. From just another tech company to an industry leader in innovation and purpose. 6 months after the wedding, I found out I was pregnant. I stared at the test for a full 5 minutes, trying to process. We talked about kids someday. But someday had felt far away. Theoretical. This was real. Marcus came home to find me sitting on the bathroom floor, test still in hand, crying. What's wrong? He dropped to his knees beside me. Are you hurt? I handed him the test without words. He looked at it, looked at me, looked at it again. We're having a baby? We're having a baby. We're having a baby. He pulled me into his arms, both of us laughing and crying at the same time. That night we lay in bed making new plans. Different plans. I'm scared, I admit it. I barely figured out how to balance work and life. How do I add a whole other person to that? We'll figure it out. Together. That's our thing, remember? Figuring it out together. What if I'm terrible at it? At being a mom. You won't be. You'll be amazing. You'll overthink everything and stress about being perfect and slowly learn that good enough is actually perfect. You know me too well. That's kind of the point of marriage. The pregnancy was hard. Not physically, though there was plenty of morning sickness and exhaustion, but mentally. All my old anxieties came rushing back. The need to prove myself, to show I could do it all, to not let anyone down. My team at work assured me they could handle things while I was on maternity leave. Jennifer told me explicitly that having a baby wouldn't affect my position or my trajectory. Marcus reminded me daily that I didn't have to be superhuman, but old habits died hard. At 7 months pregnant, I was still working 10-hour days, still checking emails at midnight, still trying to be perfect. It took my mother to finally break through. She showed up at my office unannounced one afternoon and physically dragged me out. "You're coming with me," she said. "Mom, I have a meeting." "Cancel it. This is more important." She drove me to the park where I'd played as a kid. We sat on a bench, watching other mothers with their children. "When I was pregnant with you," she said, "I was terrified. Your father and I had just immigrated. We had no money, no support system, no idea what we were doing. I worked until the day you were born because we needed the money. And you know what I regret?" "What?" "That I didn't slow down. That I didn't let myself enjoy being pregnant. that I was so focused on surviving that I forgot to live. She took my hand. You're not me, Mija. You have choices I never had. Resources I never had. Use them. Let yourself be excited instead of scared. Let yourself rest instead of proving something. I burst into tears right there on that bench. All the pressure I've been carrying, all the fear, all the perfectionism just came pouring out. What if I can't do it all? I sobbed. What if I have to choose between being a good mother and being good at my job? Then you choose being a good mother, she said firmly. The job will always be there. Your baby's childhood? That happens once. You can't get those moments back. That conversation changed something. I started actually preparing for maternity leave instead of pretending it wouldn't happen. I delegated more. I let my team step up. I went home at 5 o'clock and didn't feel guilty about it. Marcus noticed a change immediately. You're different. Calmer. I'm trying. It's hard, but I'm trying. I'm proud of you. For what? For learning. For growing. For not being who you were 2 years ago. Our daughter was born on a Tuesday in March. 8 pounds, completely healthy, absolutely perfect. We named her Sophia, after Marcus's grandmother. Holding her for first time, I understood what my mother meant, about moments you couldn't get back, about what actually mattered. The first few months were chaos. Beautiful, exhausting, overwhelming chaos. Neither of us knew what we were doing. We took turns being confident and completely lost. But we figured it out. Together. I took 4 months of maternity leave. Real leave. I checked my email maybe twice the entire time. The world didn't end. The company didn't fall apart. Life went on without me micromanaging every detail. When I went back to work, it was part-time at first, 3 days a week. It felt strange, giving up control, letting others lead, but also liberating. I'm not less successful because I'm working less, I told Jessica over coffee while Sophia slept in her stroller. Finally figured that out, huh? Only took me 30 years and a complete life overhaul. Better late than never. Marcus scaled back his foundation work too, not because he had to, but because he wanted to be present, to not miss Sophia's first, to build a life, not just a legacy. We celebrated her first birthday with the same people who'd been at our wedding. Family, friends, the community we'd built. Look at us, Marcus said, watching Sophia smash her face into her birthday cake. We're actual adults now. Speak for yourself. I'm still figuring this out. We're always figuring it out. That's the point. That night, after everyone left and Sophia was asleep, we sat on the couch looking at photos from the day. Do you ever think about that first date? I asked. All the time. Best, worst date of my life. I was so awful to you. You were human. Flawed. Real. That's what made you interesting. I judged you for being poor when you weren't. You tested me by pretending to be something you weren't. We were both kind of terrible. And look at us now. Married, parents, running companies and foundations, and still managing to not completely mess everything up. We're definitely messing some things up. But together, that's what matters. I looked around our home, at the baby toys scattered everywhere, at the work papers mixed with family photos, at the beautiful mess of a life we'd built. This was what I'd planned 2 years ago. This wasn't the neat, perfect, successful life I thought I wanted. It was better. It was real. It was ours. Thank you, I said, curling into Marcus's side. For what? For seeing me, for pushing me, for loving me even when I didn't know how to love myself. Thank you for giving a guy in torn jeans a chance, even though you thought he was broke. Best decision I ever made. Second best, he corrected. What was the first? Saying yes when I proposed in our kitchen covered in dish soap. I laughed. That was pretty good, too. We fell asleep on the couch, baby monitor on the coffee table, dishes still in the sink, living room still messy from the party. Not perfect, not Instagram-worthy, but real and honest and exactly what we needed. In the morning, Sophia would wake us up too early. We'd stumble through breakfast and diaper changes and all the chaos of new parenthood. We'd go to work and try our best and probably mess some things up. We'd come home and have dinner. and read bedtime stories and collapse exhausted. And it would be beautiful, not because it was easy or perfect, but because it was ours, because we built it together, from that terrible first date to this messy, wonderful life. Sometimes the best love stories don't start with love at first sight. Sometimes they start with judgment and mistakes and being your worst self. Sometimes they start with someone calling you out, pushing you to be better, refusing to let you hide behind your defenses. Sometimes they start with a blind date and a torn jacket and realizing that everything you thought you wanted was actually keeping you from what you needed. And sometimes, if you're brave enough to admit you were wrong, vulnerable enough to try again, and open enough to grow, those messy beginnings become the most beautiful stories of all. So, what did you think of Sienna and Marcus's journey? Have you ever judged someone too quickly and been completely wrong about them? Or maybe you've been on the receiving end of someone's judgment and proved them wrong. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Your story might inspire someone else going through something similar. And if you love this story, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss our next love story. We post new stories every week about real people, real struggles, and real love that overcomes everything life throws at it. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that it's never too late to start over, that success isn't about perfection, and that the best love stories come from being brave enough to be real. Thanks for watching, and remember, the person you're looking for might be wearing torn jeans and scuffed boots. Don't miss them because you're too busy looking for someone who fits your checklist. See you in the next story.